tomorrow help turn Donald Trump into something that doesn't often come out of Nevada? A sure bet. The Silver State's Republican caucuses are tomorrow evening, and Trump is now basking in the fact that every Republican who has won primaries in both New Hampshire and South Carolina has become the presidential nominee. But in this election year of Trump, runner-up doesn't necessarily mean down and out. Marco Rubio's strong finish in South Carolina may have just cinched him as a traditional candidate the Republican Party has been seeking, especially now that Jeb Bush has dropped out of the race. Rubio spoke just moments ago how he feels, saying he feels good, not just about tomorrow, but moving into March and the dozen primaries that happen on Super Tuesday.
Obviously, ties to Las Vegas that run deep, given my time growing up here. Obviously, I haven't lived here in 25 years, and this city has changed. But I'm not sure that's going to be enough to simply be a determinant factor in the caucus. I think this is going to be like every other candidate that's coming in. We're going to have to compete hard. But I know this. I mean, I feel very confident about our campaign moving forward in a very unusual year. We're going to continue to move forward, and we look forward to continue to add delegates to our calendar. As we get into the winner-take-all states, I think we're going to be in a very strong position.
CNN national political reporter Maeve Reston joins us now from Elko, Nevada, where a Trump rally is underway right now. So what's happening there, Maeve?
Well, Rubio just wrapped up. They're actually Rubio, Ted Cruz, and Donald Trump Jr. are all appearing within a one-block radius here today in Elko, which is one of the largest cities in rural Nevada. But it's really fascinating because it's sort of the Wild West out here in Nevada. It's very hard to do polling here because it's difficult to figure out who's actually going to turn out. But you heard Marco Rubio making a strong case in there that he's the most electable candidate in the race. Ted Cruz is also making that argument as he flies around Nevada today. Back in 2012, when Mitt Romney won here, actually only 7% of voters turned out to caucus. And that's why it's so difficult to figure out who's ahead. But I will tell you that a lot of people here do seem enthusiastic about Trump.
Well, you know, you're really getting the pulse of what people there in rural areas of Nevada feel, and interesting to hear your perspective. Thanks so much, Maeve Reston. Appreciate it. And from 17 candidates to 5, the Republican field is thinning, and many say that will mean a tougher contest for Trump as his opponents gain support. But on the night of his South Carolina victory, Donald Trump had this to say.
A number of the pundits said, well, if a couple of the other candidates dropped out, if you add their scores together, it's going to equal Trump. Right? These geniuses, they're geniuses. They don't understand that as people drop out, I'm going to get a lot of those votes also. You don't just add them together.
All right, so with me now, the author of God and Government, Why Christians Must Be Involved in the Political Process, conservative blogger Crystal Heath, who's leaning toward caucusing for Senator Ted Cruz tomorrow. Also here, Jeff DeWitt, Arizona State Treasurer, who is in Las Vegas to campaign for Trump. Thank you both for coming on to share your perspectives. Crystal, I'm going to start with you because we just heard what Donald Trump said, that as candidates drop out, those voters will turn to him. I have a pretty good feeling you don't agree with that, but it does look like he is poised to have the most delegates. So why wouldn't that happen?
Well, I think, Donald Trump is very confident. He's brought a lot of energy to this race, and a lot of people really like him. But when you look at the people that aren't supporting him or haven't supported him so far, especially with Jeb Bush, they polled the people that supported Jeb Bush, and what actually would have happened is 2% of his supporters would have gone to Marco Rubio, 2% to Ted Cruz, 1%, I believe it was, to Kasich, and 1% to Carson. And then I think, if Carson were to drop out, he tends to have more of the evangelical vote, and that splits. That we don't really know where that's going to go. Will some of it go to Trump? Sure, because he's very popular right now. But I think to say that all of that would go to Trump is just, a little too grandiose for me to go along with.
All right, so Jeff, I'm going to bring you in because despite the fact that Trump has done so well the last several states, despite that, there have been some in the establishment party, Republican Party, who say that Trump is going to jeopardize the Republicans' majority in the Senate, that he's never going to be able to make it to the White House, and they're very resistant to accepting Trump. Why do you think that is?
Well, I definitely disagree with that. If you look at the crowds that are turning out, I'm in front of the South Point Resort where we're going to have a huge rally tonight. People are already waiting in line, and this event is 9 hours away. What Donald Trump is doing for the Republican establishment, for the Republican Party, not the establishment, for the Republican Party is phenomenal. He is bringing people in to vote in many cases that have never voted before. I spoke to an 80-year-old woman that said this is going to be the first time she ever votes. She's coming out to vote for Donald Trump. So what he is doing in igniting the Republican base, I believe he is the only candidate on the Republican side that will make it to the White House. He absolutely is igniting a fire in the American electorate that we haven't seen, honestly, since Ronald Reagan. And that's why he's the candidate we all need to get behind. He's the one that's going to bring us all together. Obviously, the establishment's not happy about that. They've been making a lot of money off the backs of our grandchildren for a long time, and he's going to upset the balance of power without any question. But Donald Trump is what this country needs. Donald Trump is going to protect America, and that's why he's leading in the polls. He's winning across America. He's going to win here in Nevada, and it's really why, as you see other candidates drop out, his support keeps getting stronger.
All right, so Crystal, you hear that. I imagine you're not necessarily swayed by what Jeff said, but he does have a point. You say that you're leaning toward Cruz, though. You say anyone but Trump. I will support anyone but Trump. Does that mean you could be swayed by Marco Rubio?
Yeah, I would support Marco Rubio. You know, I think that Donald Trump does bring a lot of excitement to this race, but I honestly have a lot of concerns about his past record and the way that he carries himself. I'm not sure that, for me, that it's someone that I want as president. I like Ted Cruz. I like Marco Rubio. And the reason why I really like Ted Cruz is because he's a consistent conservative. You know, he has the record that backs up what he says. I think that Donald Trump is going to have a hard time converting some conservatives that say, you know, your record just isn't there. It's great. You talk the talk really well, but we haven't seen you walk the walk really at all. And so that's why I would be, you know, tomorrow I'm going to be caucusing for Ted Cruz, but I could be swayed to vote for Rubio as well because I think he has that good conservative record.
And they're sort of battling it out right now to be number two. Jeff, the Washington Post reports that New York Mayor and former presidential candidate Rudy Giuliani has been speaking to Trump. What do you know about that? Is that a sign that more of the party is perhaps opening up to Trump as a nominee?
You know, I think people are coming around. You know, I disagree with the other guest in saying that Donald Trump hasn't been carrying himself well. If you look at Ted Cruz and how he's handled everything, as I said a few days ago, we need to change the word behind him from trusted to busted because he's been lying to voters in so many things that he said. In fact, the Cruz campaign just sent an email out about 30 minutes ago that said this is down to a 3-person race. His email, in fundraising email to his donors, just said this is down to a 3-person race. That is misinformation he's giving the American public. Clearly, Kasich and Carson are still in this race. It is not a 3-person race. And so I don't know if this is, again, another time when he's trying to tell everyone that Carson's out of the race on Election Day, trying to grab Carson voters. But how he's handled himself has been very poorly and gone against the core principles which he proclaims to be. And with Marco Rubio, he's obviously, you know, with both those guys, honestly, they're just first-term senators. They're inexperienced first-term senators that have done nothing else than be politicians or lawyers. And
all right, Chris, I'm going to let you respond to that.
That's screwing it up.
But, Jeff, would you answer the question about Rudy Giuliani and his role in all of this and what you think that signals to you?
I'm sorry, who's rolling what now?
Crystal, 1 second. Jeff, I just wanted you to answer the question I asked before about Rudy Giuliani and what his involvement now in Trump's campaign could signal.
Well, obviously, as more and more people are coming around and realizing that Donald Trump is the presumptive nominee as he keeps winning states, I don't think that that's a sign that a bad thing that the establishment's getting behind him. I think there's just a sense of, you know what, he is going to be the best person to move America forward and to move the Republican Party forward and to bring everyone together. He's a business guy. He has a great business background of bringing people together. Quite frankly, that's what we need to do things differently. And with Rudy Giuliani or anybody else, that's what we're seeing is people seeing now that Donald Trump's the guy that can get it done.
Okay, and Crystal, I want you to be able to respond to what Jeff said, because he basically said that Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio are inexperienced first-term senators that just don't know what they're doing. Your response?
Sure. I would disagree with that. I think Ted Cruz especially, you know, he may be a first-term senator. That's true. But the whole point then of Trump supporters is, well, Trump is outside of D.C. He doesn't have that, you know, inside D.C. experience. Well, then you could say the same thing about Cruz. It's true. He's only been there for 2 years. But you know what? He's argued in front of the Supreme Court. He's represented conservative values in Texas and in Washington, D.C. And I think now, especially with the passing of Justice Scalia, we need someone that understands our Constitution, that supported our Constitution, that doesn't have have this record that liberals can point at or that conservatives can point at and say, hey, this doesn't jive with what you're